I'm Scott with Work Happier, where we're building better workplaces and happier workforces through the experiences of people. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.
How do I explain why I left my last job? A question I see all the time, and almost every time people, it seems, are overthinking what exactly they're supposed to do here, or maybe not quite seeing what that question can do for them. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes explaining how to actually approach this, and then I'm going to go through four very specific examples that I see people having the most difficulty with. And so let's start by first, this generally kind of comes up in two places, right? With job interviews and networking. That's the places where these things kind of come up, right? And you feel like you have to maybe explain yourself. And the funny part about it is that the approach actually doesn't really matter like why you left, because the strategy is for the most part the same every time, and that is you want to connect your experience to what's in front of you, because I know we hear the question and it seems like we kind of everybody kind of defaults to like defending the situation or defending the past. But what you're really trying to do is put where you've been together with where you're going, right? And okay, so like let's go with this. If you left because of the commute, fine. If you were let go because you were chronically late, okay. Don't dwell on that. You've got to connect it. Take control of the interview with the question like this. That's what you do. And I know you're probably like, I don't know, you're thinking, okay, that sounds easy. That's not reality. Okay, so then let's look at four of the more difficult scenarios and that people have to explain, and we'll see kind of how it shakes out. Fired. You were fired. Okay. So the first thing, let's understand why. Why were you let go? Not like the very moment that you were let go, but kind of the things around it. And you've got to be honest. You've got to be honest with yourself and with the situation. But that finds one end of that puts you at one end of the spectrum, right? And then you've got to figure out, what did you do well? Like really well. What's the best thing that you did there, so that you kind of, now you've got one end and you've got the other end and everything is in between. And so then you've got to find where that disconnect was, what broke, so that you can apply that change, because that's what it is. Something changed to future opportunities. Something triggered that. So let's use the example that I just used. You're fired for being chronically late. Here is, this is almost exactly word for word what you could say. I realized the commute was impacting me more than I expected. I really liked the work I was doing, X, Y, Z. And that's why this specific role stood out to me. It lets me keep doing that work without the same, constraint on my commute and my time. And so if that's the answer, there's not really much from a question standpoint. I get it. You go, okay, great. This is obviously a remote job, or it's closer to home, or there's some reason that the commute would tie in some way. Let's go with reason number two. This one you got to tread pretty lightly, but you left because of a toxic workplace. We all know you can't really say that because of there's a lot of stuff swirling around. It opens up questions, right? Creates friction, and so the funny thing about a toxic workplace is, no matter what that reason is, it's the same thing as number one. You got to find where the disconnect occurs. But here's a shortcut. I will say, if you have a toxic workplace, this is going to be pretty universal. Most of the time, you can look at this type of a situation and say that an organization does not typically have strong like internal training or professional development processes. That's why it's a toxic or a dysfunctional workplace, because they're not they're not doing those things. And so that's kind of an easier fallback. So like here would be the example. You know what? I liked the work. I did it well, but I found that in my time there, they just really struggled with things like professional development and training. So I felt like it wasn't going to be a place that supported much growth. And therefore, I made a decision to spend some time focusing on opportunities that provide that, which actually, I read your Glassdoor and really seems that you do support people's development and people enjoy working here. And then you're kind of off and running. You've deflected the question, turned it around on them. And now you're talking about what you guys have in common, right? And it shows you did some research if you have something like a Glassdoor comment. Number 3. In my opinion, this would be the most difficult one to explain, which is a bad boss or difficulties with a boss. That's actually what ultimately forced you out, because it often like that. That you're talking about poor communication, and there's almost always some blame on both sides when you've got two people. I'm not saying it's equal blame, but there are things that both sides could have done better given the situation. And now you've really introduced friction. And once you start on, that interpersonal issues road, or any kind of code word around that, or any kind of indication that may be the problem, you're asking for trouble, or at least you're generating questions that you probably just don't want to answer. So I'm actually going to say there are 3 options for this. One option, find another reason, a secondary one that you've complained about, right? Whether it's a commute, that's an easy one. Vacation time, changing life situation, doesn't matter. Pivot, like Ross and Friends, just pivot to another situation. Option 2, look, you can be honest if it's bad enough. I draw a red line at being screamed at. I'm comfortable saying that. I don't think many people accept that at work. And so I chose to, find a new job. And frankly, I don't think you seem like a company that would accept that either. So now you've flipped it around. You've given a very concrete thing. I was screamed at. I'm not going to tolerate it. And I don't think you would either. And most people shrug their shoulders and go, yeah, makes sense to me. In option 3, you can always try to skate around it, right? It's just time for me to move on. Not a great answer. If it was a short stint, and this one, a lot of people have, this is kind of the situation, right? You have a short stint somewhere. You just say it was sold to me as one thing. And after a few months, I realized that certain expectations and promises, they just kind of weren't being met. So I chose to move on and focus on opportunities that were more reliable, or whatever that word is. And lastly, laid off. This is the one that I think needlessly trips people up. Just say it. I was laid off. A detail or 2 helps. Shoulder shrug, tie it in. Everybody moves on. Yeah. Here's what I would say. Yeah. Unfortunately, I was laid off. They restructured against a changing market, and a bunch of us just didn't make sense financially anymore. Love the work, love the environment. I'm good friends with people that are still there, which is actually what attracted to me to your company and this role, the similarities in particular. Done. I mean, what's anybody going to say to that? And so now, we've seen kind of 4 situations that I think I know people find really difficult to explain. And, notice kind of what happened, right? In none of those were we defending our past. We weren't defending anything, really. The strategy never changed. You find the disconnect and you apply it to what's happening next. Because why did you leave your job? It isn't really a question of why did you leave. It's really, it's a chance for you to highlight, why does this opportunity make more sense? And to help someone understand why it is that you're sitting in front of them. And I'm Scott with Work Happier. That is, that's how to handle why did you leave your last job. Thanks for watching. As always, if you have something going on that makes you say, what do I do here? You want to work together? Let's figure it out. My contact info is in the description. You can also check out my website, workhappier.ca. And don't forget, it's all about the people. Thanks.